I have a one-way ticket to Monrovia, please? Yes. Cash? No. No. Thank you.
I've been here 30 long years. All my children born here. I've had a mighty good life. God bless the US of A. I saw my car, I saw my house. I got me plenty of change.
soca, all the sun, walla walla. Somebody says thunder, oh, la la. Is it Papa Kama soca, all the sun, walla walla. Somebody says thunder, oh, la la. Well, you see, my friends, I'm town chief home and dinner. They brought yeah palava, so I can fix it for them. But what I don't understand, why should they make palava for this Rasta woman who is called Lala? Is it Papa Kama soca, all the sun, walla walla? Somebody says thunder, who owns Lala? Is it Papa Kama soca, all the sun, walla walla? Somebody says thunder, who owns Lala? Peace and whisper and tell me low, it is gonna wipe through this phosphor so. So I say whoa, now I know. We go found out who is who. We go send for each and every one today and tell them everyone will be here. You will see the cheetah will stay away, the true husband will have fear. We will see, we will see, we will know who is he. That's just what I'm gonna do. We will find out the truth. I sent for Game, I sent for Ghana, I sent for Palawala, I sent for Kama Soko, and we know who is who. Buck, buck, buck.
Who is that?
That's me, old man Konneh. I've come from the farm ever since I've been knocking the door. Buck, buck, buck.
Who is that?
That's me, old man Konneh. And I've come from the farm ever since I've been knocking the door. Hey, God, man, I love you, but you too rascal. This time if I catch you, I swear I'm finished with you. The first time I caught you, your boyfriend used to call you Lala. Again I have caught you, now it's a bag of cassava. Buck, buck, buck.
Who is that?
That's me, old man Konneh. And I've come from the farm ever since I've been knocking the door. Buck, buck, buck.
Who is that?
That's me, old man Konneh. I have come from the farm ever since I've been knocking the door.
Oh, Ghana, I'm coming, man, Ghana. Hold your heart, let me tell my lover, I'm coming to open the door. Hold your heart, let me tell my lover, I'm coming to open the door.
I said, but remember what is down there behind the door. I said, but remember what is down there behind the door. That looks like a bag of cassava. Me, I want to know. The first time I caught you, your boyfriend used to call you Lala. Again I have caught you, now it's a bag of cassava. Buck, buck, buck.
Who is that?
That's me, old man Konneh. I have come from the farm ever since I've been knocking the door. Buck, buck, buck.
Who is that?
That's me, old man Konneh. I have come from the farm ever since I've been knocking the door. Hey, come man, I love you, but you too rascal. Sweet come man, I love you, but you too rascal. Oh, come man, sweet come man, I love you, but you too rascal. Oh, come man, hey, come man, I love you, but you too rascal. Oh, come man.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Will you please have your seats? We are about to start. Thank you so much. At this time, we will have invocation by the chaplain of the Liberian Association of Metropolitan Atlanta.
Let us pray together. Our Heavenly Father, Almighty God, we thank you. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for our guests. We thank you for every man and every woman that is present here today. For your mercy and your grace, United States of America. And we thank you for the loving people of Liberia that you have brought to this great land. Father, we pray and we lift up this town hall meeting to you. We pray for wisdom. We pray for your guidance. We pray for understanding, Father, as we dialogue and discuss about poverty. We know for poverty to be eradicated, it's all by your grace. And we pray for your provision as we dialogue and discuss. Amen.
Our community leadership. The vice president is of the Liberian Association is not here right now, but we have over there the treasurer, Mr. James Tamba. Please welcome Mr. Tamba. We also, we saw the chaplain, Mr. Sanjo Conte. Our secretary was left at the office putting some things together, so she's not here. But we have a few community leaders here. Let me go back. We want to welcome our vice chairman of our board of directors, Ms. Celestine Payne. And this lady is not currently a part of our administration, but she worked so hard in the previous administration and continues to work, so we want to welcome Imani Bendu, who was financial secretary of the association. And on the keyboard is our very talented chairman of the board, Mr. Paul Moore. In the back, you can't see him through the walls, but another all-around man in our community, Mr. Joe Reeves. He's a member of the board of directors. There is Joe. He came for that recognition along with our secretary, Ms. Game Kwade. We want to recognize also the president of the Mandingo Association, and also here is the treasurer of the Arlington Redevelopment Association. This is Betty Wright. I see a couple of ministers with all the members of the Liberian Ministers Association of Georgia. Please stand. I don't know when we will get this opportunity to say thanks to the people who assisted us in getting this program on the way. People behind the scene, Laura May Gavidan, Elder Carl Lakes, they worked so hard to make this sanctuary what it is right now, and we want to say thanks to them. And the young lady who was whispering in his ear, we want to say thank you for all you've done. Now, we know that we're here. We also want to welcome Miss Africa USA. Representing Nigeria. Yes, we thank you so much for coming. Our local queen and Miss Liberia USA is a little slow in getting here, but she will be here. If we have or have not heard about it, we know that the whole purpose of this poverty reduction strategy, the slogan, Live Liberia, that's part of the name of this thing, Live Liberia. We want to live Liberia, the government wants to live Liberia. And these officials from Liberia are here to clear up all of the misunderstandings you have heard regarding the PRS. And we hope that you will have the opportunity to ask all the questions that you want to ask. But please, there will be only a series of questions. Please select the most important of all your questions, or the most important comment. Some people don't have a question, but they have a comment. You can select the next important and then next, okay? Thank you so much. Also, let me recognize University Consortium here in Atlanta, Dr. Phillips. So with all those introductions, is there any leader, a local leader here? Oh, I am so sorry. Let me introduce the president of the Grand Judah Association, Miss Cecilia somewhere.
Got it wrong.
She's president of Rivergy, and we do have the president of the Grand Judah Association, Mr. Isaac Rice. And we also see in the back there the president of the Bong County Association, Raymond Sumo. Is there any other president that we have not recognized? Thank you for coming. Anybody else that we have not recognized? Yes, sir. Okay, we have a representative from the Mandingo Association, fully represented, the chairman, and we have the Grand Old Chief of the Mandingo Association here also. Also, we had a representative from Olele Crawford. Any representative from Olele Crawford? Okay, he will be coming. I'm sure you all know him, Senior Sifa. He's the only student from Olele Crawford still around. But we'll give the bishop of this house a couple minutes to say hello to you, and after that we will turn the program over to Mr. James Cully, who is the coordinator of this whole event.
I want to just thank you, Mr. President, and want to all Ambassador, our Consul General, and our ministerial staff from the Republic of Liberia present here. I want to just welcome you on behalf of Pastor Karen Nye and I. To those of you who may not know me, I'm Bishop Nam, pastor or founder of this ministry. And we want to just take this opportunity to welcome the community to this place. We are grateful that God, in His providence, has provided for us a place that the community can gather, a place that we are able to worship God and also to serve this community. I want to thank you again, Mr. President, for a job well done. Welcome, welcome. God bless.
Gentlemen, Your Excellency Ambassador Lambs, distinguished platform guests, it is my honor to officially declare the program open. I'll give you a brief rundown of what we're going to do here tonight. We'll have welcome remarks by the Liberian Community Association President here. We'll have opening remarks from His Excellency Ambassador Barnes. If we have a representative of the Union of Liberian Associations in the Americas, they will bring opening remarks, and then we'll take opening remarks from the Liberian Diaspora Advisory Board if they're here. Immediately following those three remarks, we'll take opening comments from Honorable Amara M Konneh, he's the Minister of Planning, followed by Dr. C. William Allen video on progress on development works in Liberia. Immediately after the video, we'll go into question and answers. So without much ado, call on Mr. Walter Skinner, President of the Liberian Association of Metropolitan Atlanta.
And we hope that your presence here will walk away with something very meaningful. We hope that questions will be answered. And we want to thank you for being here at this time. We set the time at 6 o'clock, and it was not to trick you. Okay, we didn't intend to start at 12 so you could be here at 6. But we said 6 o'clock, we started at 6:30, and we want to thank you so much for taking the time to come out. We want to welcome you again to the community. The Liberian community is a great community in the Union of Liberian Associations in the Americas, and I think we are proud of what the union is doing and what the community is doing. So we want to say again, welcome to all of you.
The program I'm reading from is just a little delay. I will now call on His Excellency Ambassador Nathaniel Barnes to bring us opening remarks.
I bring you greetings on behalf of Her Excellency, the President of the Republic of Liberia, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the resilient people of Liberia, and the government of the Republic of Liberia. I also extend to you felicitations on behalf of the diplomatic and support staff of your embassy in Washington, D.C. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here in Atlanta again. I've made several visits to Atlanta. It's becoming a very, very important and critical part of our diaspora outreach, the diaspora outreach program by the government. Before I start, I'd like to just make a few acknowledgments of people that are very, very important, that have become very, very important agents of change in Liberia, many non-Liberians that play a critical role in the implementation of the PRS. First is Honorable Terry Coleman. He's Deputy Commissioner of Agriculture here in the state of Georgia. And I just recently met Honorable Coleman, and he is working very, very closely and very diligently with our Honorary Consul General here, Cynthia Nash, for the implementation of appropriate collaboration between our government and the state of Georgia with specific reference to agriculture initiatives. Mr. Michael Parkinson, Homeland Security Deputy Director of Agriculture, he works in Dr. Lely Phillips Memparin, who was also introduced. Lely is very important. She's the Associate Professor at Georgia State University for Women's Studies. She's also, as was mentioned, Chair of the University Consortium of Liberia. They are a consortium of 8 universities that we've established here in the state of Georgia under the auspices of the Office of our Honorary Consul General to, as a matter of fact, work collaboratively with our institution of higher learning in Liberia. Andy Alakamenen. Andy is a colleague of mine. He's the former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Liberia. Just came back to Georgia to finish his doctoral work here in Georgia. Laura Cisse, Assistant Professor at Morehouse College, Department of Political Science. Laura's link to Liberia is she is the supervisor of the Junior Diplomatic Fellowship Program. She's the advisor of the program that we also recently implemented through Cynthia's office. Mr. Arthur Brown, President of Lescott Enterprise, Inc. Dr. Paul Brown, who's Director of International Education Studies Abroad at Clark University, here representing the President of Clark University. Thank you all very, very much for coming, and thank you for engaging with us and being partners, effective partners, as we attempt to lift Liberia. I am thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be a part of this, as it's transformative, it's new, and it's a clear signal for the new dispensation in Liberia. Just let me address myself to you, the Liberian diaspora. As all of you know, since we've been at the embassy, we've made a very, very strong attempt to engage you, because we realize that you have power, you have value. Now, the challenge we have as a government is how can we channel and focus that power and that value so that it positively impacts Liberia. When we met with the leadership earlier this afternoon, I mentioned there are two very, very important aspects of the Liberian diaspora here in the U.S. Liberian diaspora globally, as a matter of fact, within that power and that value. Because politically, you represent the 16th county of Liberia. And economically, you, the diaspora, represents Liberia's middle class. Don't forget that. There's also one other thing I'd like to appeal with you. Now that the government is reaching out and engaging you and seeking your advice and seeking your counsel and seeking your input, it's because they realize the magnitude of that power and that value. But there's something very, very important. You must take ownership. We must move away from the propensity in Liberia where we feel that our leaders are the ones that have responsibility. Our leaders are the ones that have ownership of our challenges and our problems and our issues. We all must take responsibility. We must take ownership. For it is only when all of us, each and every Liberian, regardless of gender, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of social standing, regardless of geographic location, can take ownership of Liberia, can take ownership of the destiny of Liberia, and we'll begin to see ourselves moving forward. Again, the experts are here. We welcome the Director General to the United States to engage you. And let me close by saying the doors of your embassy are always open to engage you. We are just a telephone call away. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a very, very valuable and interactive session. God bless.
Mr. Minister, Ambassador Burnham, fellow Liberians, I bring you greetings from the National Board of Directors of the Union of Liberian Association in America, and also from the National Administration. We want to thank the Ambassador for the new relationship the Union has built with the Embassy. We have had our challenges, and we deal with those challenges based on the reality. For the 21st century, we have engaged in partnership and relation building. So we are very, very grateful to the government for reaching us in the diaspora. I think this is an opportunity for us to make meaningful contributions and recommendations to this process. Because once we do that, we become part of the process. And I want to say here that the union is very, very involved in this process through our collaboration with the authority involved. The national president was up at the Bureau section, and I'm here tonight. Thereafter, we'll be going back to North Carolina, where we'll be hosting another section. And the national vice president, Gisela, will be in Minnesota with you all. This is the document that we are talking about. This is a very detailed document. Those of you who have not had the opportunity can go to the Minnesota Plenty website, you'll be able to download it. It's a very, very important document. My only recommendation to you, Mr. Minister and Dr. Allen, is that the bureaucracy in the process and the implementation of this document should be reviewed. Because we want this document to impact the lives of our people. We got section of the Ministry of Planning, we got the Internal Affairs Ministry involved in development, and we have other institutions in the country of Ministry of Public Works. But my concern here is that, especially with Assistant Superintendent of Development, Mr. Ali, I want that position to be abolished so that the SES program that is hiring county development. With that said, I want to thank you. I'm happy to be here, and we will be part of the deliberation. Thank you very much.
Having opening remarks from Ms. Cynthia Nash. She's the Honorary Counsel of Liberia in the state of.
Good evening to everyone. His Excellency Ambassador Nathaniel Barnes, the Honorable Minister Konneh, Minister of Planning, the Honorable William Allen, Director General Civil Service, retired Deputy Minister of Commerce and Foreign Ministry, and the Al-Qamin, Mr. Walter Skinner, members of the Board of Lama, the Honorable Terry Coleman, the Department of Agriculture for the state of Georgia, dear friends and colleagues. Again, my name is Cynthia Nash. I'm the new, who am I today? Honorary Consul General to the Republic of Liberia. I'm very excited today to have these distinguished guests here with me, the state of Georgia, the state that I represent on behalf of the government of Liberia. I was appointed by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Her Excellency, in 2009, and commissioned by His Excellency M. Nathaniel Barnes here in Atlanta, Georgia, in August of 2009. Liberia is not new to me. For many of you who know me, I have a 30-year history in this country as the first ambassador student for Rotary Exchange in 1974-75. So I've built my love for this country over the years, and it gives me great pleasure to have been distinguished by the President to this appointed position today. Very briefly, my office is open for ideas and suggestions. You're welcome. I'm very focused on the poverty reduction strategy. It's a mandate by the government that members of the diplomatic corps are focused in these areas, and I'm very focused on one particular pillar number 4, infrastructure and basic services. And so as the ambassador has outlined briefly, we have several new initiatives, the University Consortium for Liberia, where we have 8 academic institutions who meet quarterly to talk about research, faculty and student exchange, and other efforts to help uplift the universities in Liberia. We have 3 institutions that have already signed these memorandums of understanding. The University of Georgia has signed 3, one with the University of Liberia, one with Tubman University, and one with Cunnington College. They have also signed one with the government of Liberia in collaboration with the Minister of Planning. In addition to that, we've also signed a memorandum of agreement with the University of Liberia and Georgia State University, focusing on women's studies, gender studies in particular. Dr. Phillips McPyron is on her way there this summer to be a Fulbright Fellow, and she'll be very focused on the good work that Georgia State University can leverage at the University of Liberia. We finally have one HBCU, Historical Black College and University, Morehouse College, has signed recently the memorandum of agreement between the University of Liberia and Morehouse College. We have representation here, Ms. Say, who will be a faculty advisor. This program is going to be very important. These fellows will be very useful to us as we start to build the diplomatic corps, particularly for Africans and young African Americans who are interested. We have a number of different programs and projects. You're welcome to visit our website, www.liberianconsulategA.com. I will have business cards for you. We have a trade mission going to Liberia in October of 2010. You are welcome. It's a partnership with the National Coalition of 100 Black Women and Delta Airlines. Finally, I will say that we are committing ourselves this evening to making sure that we bring home the state of Georgia to support the Republic.
Dr. Allen, Consul General Nash, President Skinner, and members of the Liberian Association of Atlanta Metropolitan, is that how you call it? Apologies, I'll get it before I get from here. The representative of EULA, leaders of community organizations, Liberian community organizations here present, our Queen, friends and partners of Liberia, fellow Liberians. Let me join the ambassador in extending to you greetings from our president, Ellen Johnson. I can't see. And bringing to you greetings from our president, Her Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and the people of Liberia. We should have been 4 ministers, 4 members of the cabinet. Dr. Ellen and I, the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Public Works. But the Ministers of Finance and Public Works are not here because, as you all know, our law requires that we submit, the executive submit the fiscal year budget for the next year by April 30th. And Minister Gafwan is the Minister of Finance and the leader in our process. Dr. Allen and I are both members of the Budget Committee. We've been working really hard for the past 6 weeks in getting the next fiscal year budget ready. So Minister Gafwan had to go back to finalize the numbers and then help the President to submit the budget to the legislature, which they have done on Wednesday. And so he extends his apologies and also his greetings. Minister Woods is not here because, as you know, we are right now really working hard on rehabilitating our damaged infrastructure in Liberia, particularly the roads and the bridges. Monrovia is going through a total makeover right now, the streets of Monrovia. We're repaving everything, taking it out, not just crashing it, but taking it out and then putting down new quota. We're working on the highway from Monrovia to Buchanan. We are currently also working hard with our development partners to start the Pinsville Red Light to Ganta Guinea Border Highway in January of 2011. And so he was bringing together all of those who have participated in the bidding process for those projects, particularly the extension of the Boketan to Cotton Tree to Boketan Road into Buchanan, and then the tender for the Pinsville Red Light to Ganta project. So that is why he's not here. I know the press release by the embassy mentioned them to be here with us. And I just wanted to show respect to you, telling you the main reason why they're not here and to extend to you our sincere apology. We've come here basically to engage you in a serious conversation. It is the beginning of a conversation that will go on for a long time. And we are here primarily to share with you information we have gathered over the past 4 years on the recovery process of our country, and then share with you some of the progress we're making, some of the opportunities that are there in Liberia, the challenges that are there, and how we can forge a new partnership to finding solutions to some of the problems in our country. We'll give you some numbers, we'll show you some pictures, and then we'll show you a short video from Monrovia through 7 counties so that you can see for yourself the work that we must do together to make Liberia a strong state. So basically, we've come to listen to you. We've come to get new ideas so that we can go back to formulate the next development agenda. We've come, just like the representative from EULA just did, to learn, to take notes from you, to get your input into the reconstruction of your country. Like the ambassador said, certainly the Liberian diaspora in the United States politically is the 16th county. It's just that you can't vote. So how do we form a new partnership so that you can exercise that constitutional right in your country? It's something that I believe should be the new frontier for diaspora Liberians in the US. Economically, you are the middle class. The only problem is you're not on the ground. And the way you are contributing to the economy in Liberia is through remittances that you send through Western Union and MoneyGram, and we are tracking that. It's accounting between somewhere $80 million to $100 million annually, contributing significantly to our economy. But should your participation in your country be limited to that and the control numbers? We don't think so. We believe there's a bigger stake. We want to forge with you a partnership that will make it easier for you to come home and become entrepreneurs, to transfer that middle class potential to reality on the ground. We've come to engage you on how together we can reverse the brain drain in Liberia that was caused by more than 35 years of decline, both political and economic decline. We've come also to engage you on how we can do education better in Liberia. How do we improve healthcare? How do we talk about cross-cutting issues like women empowerment? How do we increase girls' education in Liberia? So that's the main reason why we wanted to tap into the diaspora initiative of the ambassador to sort of reach out more and begin to build this new partnership so that as we conclude the implementation of the current poverty reduction strategy that is just for 3 years, then we can now make the diaspora Liberians a key stakeholder in the next development agenda. That is why we're here. So we're here to listen to you. So feel free during the question and answer period to ask your questions. We'll do our best to answer them. And when, if we don't have an answer to your question, we will say so. We have not come here to defend any particular government policy or on a propaganda tour. We've actually come here to engage you constructively. And so, but we want you to actually give us suggestions too, so that we go back and then people can say that, look at Dr. Allen and Mr. Konneh are the whiz kids in the cabinet. We'll be talking about some of the good ideas that will come from this room in that room. So that is why we're here. So I will jump straight into a presentation that we've put together to start that conversation. Dr. Allen is the chair for the Governance and Rule of Law pillar. He will give you an update on that pillar. Mr. Gapon is not here to give you an update on the economic revitalization pillar. And Mr. Wush is not here to give you an update on that, but we'll do our best to tell you about some of the key things that are happening in the various pillars. My job in all of this is, as Minister of Planning and Economic Affairs, is to coordinate the implementation of the agenda, this document, through the Liberia Reconstruction and Development Committee, an institution that was set up by the President to coordinate the activities of the government and the donors' contribution to the implementation of this process for results. She chairs it, and I coordinated. The scorecard that you read about on the internet was released by us just so that we don't give our friends then the luxury of sort of sliding back. So what we're talking here is actually development in a Liberian context. What are we talking about? The poverty reduction strategy is about development. So when we talk about development, we talk about the expansion of human capital. And right here in this room, we have potential people who can come to Liberia and make a difference. So how do we make that happen? Because our country really right now is suffering from serious capacity problem. And then that expansion of human capital, human capabilities involves education, health, freedom, security, standard of living. The the 4 pillars in the PRS: enhancing security, economic revitalization, good governance and the rule of law, rehabilitating infrastructure, and providing basic services to the people. So every human being needs this, and it's because of this that most of us are here in the United States. But most of these things were destroyed in Liberia and require resources to rebuild. That is what the PRS is about. Some will say that the PRS is not going to sort of reduce poverty. You're right. We'll show you later the poverty numbers in our country. The incidence of poverty in Liberia is so high. This poverty reduction strategy is not going to eradicate poverty. But what it's going to do is to begin to look at some of these things that were destroyed in Liberia to start the process. So it is the beginning of a long journey. So one synthetic variable to look at in this discussion is output or income per capita. If you want to measure poverty, you got to look at the income, right, of the country, or the income of the people in the country. So that output can be used to consume, right? So you have people eating 1 meal a day in Liberia. With better income, they can eat 3 to 4 meals. It can be used to educate. We talk about education here, right? Linking it to human capabilities. You need the money to educate. And then to cure, healthcare, to protect, etc. So people are happier when they get these things, and there's less conflict in that country, and there's accountable government in the process. So this is why the government of Liberia is interested in the level and growth and the income per capita in the country. So that is what we are pushing toward, we're driving toward. So all of these things that we want, that every human being wants, including Liberians in the villages, in the towns, on the farms, are only possible in a peaceful and secure environment. That is why enhancing security is the #1 pillar in the PRS. Next. So we talk about income. We'd like to share with you the distribution of the world's income using 2007 figures and to show you where Liberia is. On this axis here, you have the cumulative world income. Okay? Because we have more than 100 countries in the world, we plug it between 0 and 1. And then on this axis, we have the cumulative world population. So look at this. This is where we live. I mean, this is where you live. This is where we are right now, right there. One of the richest countries in the world. This is your country, Liberia, here. And then look at Nigeria here. These are all developing countries. Nigeria has mineral wealth, oil, etc., but it's a poor country. All right? And then you have Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Indonesia, Egypt, and then China is still here. And then the OECD countries, the richest countries in the world, are here. Why is that? It's something that would like to sort of understand as we try to get Liberia to move along this line into this direction, because this is the direction where everybody would like to go. This is why we're all here. All right. So what we see here is that the rich countries in this area are more peaceful and stronger. How did they get there? And then the poor countries here are more fragile and less peaceful. I mean, you watch CNN, you go to Google, you watch the news, you know what I'm talking about. So this is a picture we wanted to share with you so that you see the position of your country among the Committee of Nations. Next. Against one of the most successful countries in Africa, Botswana. So this is the picture of that. On this axis here, you have the gross domestic product, GDP per capita, income per head, per citizen in the country, from 0 to 10,000. And then you have the year of independence here. Liberia got her independence in 1847, but we started collecting economic data right here in the late 1950s. All right, because that's when we experienced the growth episode in our country. So let's assume that Liberia got her independence from the time we started collecting data, right here. Botswana got her independence around 1965. here. So at the time of Botswana, the blue is Botswana, the red is Liberia. At the time of Botswana's independence in the 1960s, Liberia was richer than Botswana. Just look at right here, what the red dot is, and then compare it down there. Botswana is below Liberia on the line. But as we went further, Botswana began to grow, to grow, to grow. Right now, GDP per capita is around 9 to 10,000 in Botswana. And then look at Liberia, declining, declining. We got poorer and they got richer. Why? We need to understand this in order to understand the poverty context in our country. It's not easy to just go on the internet and criticize. But you need to understand how do we get there? The cause of poverty before we can address the symptoms. Building roads, building schools, clinics, etc. are symptoms of poverty. But how do we get there? So we wanted to show you this, Botswana and Liberia, two countries on the same continent with different challenges. You will see later on. Next. So Liberia and Botswana at a glance. Liberia, our politics, we got our independence in 1847. We are a presidential republic. Power is concentrated in the presidency. Like the ambassador said, that is why Liberians look up to their leaders for answers versus taking ownership of the process to get involved to make a contribution. You don't have to be a minister to exercise leadership. You don't even have to be a president to exercise leadership. All of us are leaders in our own ways, in our families, in our communities, in our schools, in our churches, all over the place. We can. All right. So geography. Look at this. I put this in red. 100% vegetation. All right. I think it's about 48,000 square miles, the country, and it's covered. It's all green. Okay. So agriculture then would be the mainstay of the economy right here. But it's only relegated to or constrained to subsistence agriculture. And then we have a long sea coast. We have ports. Okay? Technically, we have Monrovia Port, Freeport, we have Buchanan, we have Greenville, we have Harper. Okay? So trade should be easier in Liberia, and we know that any country that is linked to the rest of the world through trade should be a rich country. So why are we poor? And then our population is around 4 million. Not a big country. Okay? Botswana. They got their independence in 1966. Okay? They have a parliamentary system, the British system. And then their geography, look at this. They are a landlocked country. They have even more challenges than we do. They have no port. They don't have any sea. Unless they see on TV. Right? 70% of Botswana is covered by the Kalahari Desert. It can be worse than that. Look at it. Compare the two geographies. Who should be richer? Liberia should, of course, be richer. But why are we poor, folks? Why are we poor? And then the population here is around 2 million. So we wanted to show you this so that we begin to understand what happened to Liberia. Next. So what did Botswana do? The key intervention in Botswana, fellow Liberians, was they protected property rights of actual and potential investors. They fixed land. In Liberia today, we have initiated the process to fix our land. But you know, those of you who are building houses in Liberia, what some of you went through. So among Liberians themselves, we haven't gotten land right before you talk about potential investors. That is why the Land Commission, headed by Dr. Brady, who is working with Cynthia Nash here, is critical. We need to support that commission. The diaspora Liberians will have to find a way to support that commission. We have to get land right. We have to get property rights correct in Liberia. We don't have that. We have two land laws, the customary law and the statutory law in one country. In some areas, the other law does not apply. So there's confusion there. And we talk about land, we need to bring in farmers to do mechanized agriculture. If we have crappy land laws, then you can't do that. Okay? We need to do manufacturing. But first we need to fix electricity, of course. But when we do that, how do you bring companies in the country to build parks, business parks, and other things? So fixing land was critical for Botswana. They maintained law and order, Pillar 1 in the PRS, enhancing security. And then Pillar 3, governance and the rule of law. You all will agree with me that our trouble in Liberia, as you will see later, did not start with the 1990 war. It started way back. We did not get our institutions right. The institutions to resolve conflict. Justice went to the highest bidder. Justice went to the affluent class in our country. Women were disenfranchised in many cases over there. So our institutions to resolve conflict are the causes of poverty in our country. The institutions to get governance right. Big problem there. And then Botswana major natural resource is diamonds. So what they did is they managed diamond revenues exceptionally well. Economic revitalization. You've heard about the Kimberley process. Kimberley process. It originated from South Africa and Botswana. They have this system where every diamond is registered before it's exported so that it is tracked. And the diamond revenues come back to the country. To the extent now that they add value to the diamond before they export them. Their bureaucracy, government effectiveness ran along meritocracy. That's what Dr. Allen and the CSA are trying to do when you hear about people getting laid off, right-sizing, downsizing. Oh, the country is poor. You can't come in and start firing people. You can't come in and do this and do that. We've got to make our government effective and responsive to the people. You can't have a bloated civil service that does nothing. It's critical. They had hard budget constraints were the rule, and not the exception in the public sector. All right? Basically, they minimized borrowing, they invested, they put their money in smart investment. You don't try to do things that you cannot afford. Over the last 4 years, you've heard about cash-based budget in Liberia, cash-based budget. So expenditure is equal to revenue. You can only spend what you take in. But when you begin to sort of expand your expenditure and your revenue is small, the first thing that comes to your mind is you borrow to finance the deficit. Deficit financing got Liberia into a $4.7 billion debt that we inherited, all of us, which we are paying today. In 2006, Liberia's external and domestic debt totaled $4.7 billion. Through the HIPC process, HIPC, you can Google it, the heavily indebted poor country initiative of the IMF, Liberia started the process of erasing that huge amount of debt. And to do that, we had to implement reforms in the PRS to do public financial management, to do the General Auditing Commission, to set up the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission, to fix revenue generation in a new way, and other reforms to get debt relief, because 4.7 billion is 200%, 2 to 300% of our GDP. We can't afford to pay it. So how do we pay it? You have to do reforms. And as you'll see later on, the indicators are getting better. We're not there yet. So since we started the HIPIC process, we've reached what you call decision point and past that. Right now, we are at completion point. So between the process and where we are now, our debt burden has been reduced to only 1.4 billion from 4.7. Okay? I encourage you to check the IMF website, all the information there. I'm not making this up. So what we have done over the past 8 months in Liberia is to work 16 hours a day on the HIPIC triggers. And so the IMF team came into the country, reviewed the progress we've made, and now Liberia's request for 100% debt relief goes to the IMF board on June 6. By the grace of God, with your prayers, we are certain that Liberia's debt will be canceled at that time. So I wanted to share this with you because of this hard budget constraints. So now does it mean that when we get debt relief, we should go and start investing in programs that don't have high economic returns, or borrow irresponsibly to finance our deficit by paying civil servants pay? I don't think so. But a debt management committee has been set up that is chaired by the Minister of Finance. The central bank governor is there, Justice Minister, Planning Minister, and the Minister of State to manage the debt process going forward. The other thing that Botswana did well was large public investments in education to raise that human capability that we talked about earlier on in the presentation. Health, again, to cure, and infrastructure across the country to stimulate economic growth. So Botswana got it right. So what did we do? Liberia. Our constitution was the problem in the beginning. Okay, it addressed just a few people and did not take into account the welfare of the entire country earlier on. Now we don't want to go into the debate of why and this and that, but that's the fact. And then significant portion of our society were excluded or marginalized from institutions of governance. Monrovia was Liberia. Okay, everything emanated from Monrovia to the interior. It took a long time, even before you could get the county people involved in governance. Land and property rights were severely limited. Women were excluded. Okay? And not all Liberians could own land. So that is why today we have a chaotic land tenure system. And then political power concentrated in Monrovia and primarily in the presidency. Again, back to the ambassador's opening statement. In our country, everybody looks to the president. So the PRS talks about decentralization, which is a governance intervention that Dr. Allen will be talking about. We've completed the draft policy. It is now before cabinet for debate. And this government, it's a policy of this government to actually decentralize powers to the counties, so that most of the decisions should be made in the counties, not from Monrovia down there. Investment in education, health, and infrastructure were limited to Monrovia only. If you go to Liberia, that's what you see. And then widespread mismanagement of our natural resources. Go to Bonny Hills. You see the Blue Lake. LMC, Liberia Mining Company, used to be in Tubmanburg. The only thing you see there is a big hole with blue water in it. And people go there for recreational purposes. And meanwhile, we're not taking money in for tourism. So we have a big pit. You go to Lamco, same thing. Burma, same thing. So our natural resources, unlike Botswana, really were not properly managed. Then let's look at the economic picture, all right, of Liberia. The economic history of Liberia. I said earlier that Liberia's struggle did not start in 1990. On this axis is how rich Liberia has been since independence. Here, you see it started at 900, and then we started tracking the numbers in 1970. Okay? So in 1970, you see Liberia making progress here, from way back here. right? During the Tubman era. In 1972 is when Liberia has been a rich country, according to this. And the source of this is the World Bank Development Indicators and the IMF. It's not the government data. So in 1972, when some of us in this room were just born, or maybe not born yet, the income per citizen, the income per head in Liberia was $800. That's how far we've reached. Okay, in 1972. Let's follow the line. You begin to see a decline here. For those who were of age, that's when you heard about the fall in the price of iron ore, Liberia's main source of export earning, and rubber, two traditional engines of growth in our country, were hit by the price crisis, exogenous to Liberia. Our economy was not diversified. So you come here, President Torbo and his team rallied. This is when, as you will see later, we started to borrow to finance our deficit when we were in hard economic times. This is when we started accumulating the $4.7 billion debt. So the economy goes up, still not responding, it declined. And then it never went back to this, 800. And meanwhile, the political and social tension in the country were on the rise. Remember Moja? Remember PPP? Remember all those demonstrations? Look at this. I'm not saying that they were responsible for the decline, but basically because of the lack of the right institutions to address some of these issues, the people decided to recontract their country. That's what we did. And then we came here, 1980, the coup. Look at when the coup happened. Look at our country. Economically, never recovered. There was no growth for 1 decade. From 1980 to 1990, no growth. All right? All the borrowing from the IMF, the World Bank, the bilateral, the economy could not get stimulated. Maybe we know why. Our institutions, the governance was not right. Okay? So let's look at the cause here. And then you see, 1990, the war came, and what do you see? In fact, this is like a curve right here. So it's hanging in there. We'll get to 1990, there's a free fall. That's what you call in economics a collapse. Our economy collapsed, the largest collapse in history, negative 35%. Negative 35% below the line. All right? So, from 1990, we continue until the election. See, governance matters in growth. The elections of 1997 brought hope to Liberia. You begin to see the economy recovering. Until 2003, when World War III started in Liberia, there was another decline again. Until again, the Liberian people decided against war, against violence, and elected the current government. And since then, you begin to see moderate growth. Folks, this is the economic history of our country. Let's focus on the cause of poverty, not the symptom. This is what we got. This is what we are all grappling with. To reverse this so that we'll come back up. It may not happen in the lifetime of this administration. It may not happen in the next 10 years or even the next generation. But we have started the process. You Liberians made that decision. And we need to talk about this openly, so that we can keep our country. All right? So this is how outside assistance is helping Liberia. Look at this. 1972. Our country did not rely much on foreign assistance. Okay? Let's look at this. We're talking about from 100 million all the way to close to $1 billion in aid in Liberia. But in the 1970s, we begin to see aid go up. The economy is declining, not enough fiscal space to finance your project, to keep the people happy with education, to do most of this work for you. Ownership, the ambassador talked about, is critical. And then, look at the zigzag line. So this is where now, in 1980 here, aid went up, and then 1990, it came down when everybody left, and then after the election again, came back up, and then it went down, declined sharply with the war. After the election, comes back up. So you can see the relationship, right, between peace, governance, and the desire of the people to move. I want to show you some evidence here, not just talk. All right? So after World War III, right here, I can see with the camera. All right? Around here, this is when you call the emergency aid period. When the Judy Bryant government was installed, everybody came in, NGOs. So when you see on the internet or you listen to the radio, you see us sort of negotiating with the NGOs. It's not because we're weak, but it's because the time they came to the country was really critical. They did some good things. So now that we have transitioned from this phase to the development phase, we need to build a partnership with them. Because our priorities have changed. We're no longer in emergency mode. So look at this. After the Bryant administration came into office, aid went up. Okay? Post-war recovery. And then 2006 right here, and this government came to office, and see how aid has gone up. And then this is when we put the PRS in place. The PRS is in place when we already had huge commitment and donor resources in the economy. So the plan came after the interventions were happening because we needed to solve some problems. So that is why recently you've heard about the Aid and NGO Summit to put in place a policy that will help us to manage this and align into that document so that we get the best for the country. But look at what happened last year because of the global economic crisis. Liberia should not be dependent on aid because there are external factors that don't guarantee the commitment to our country. So we wanted to highlight this because some people might think that, oh, this government money not come in, and then what did you do with it? It's more complicated than that. So the financial crisis hurt the rich countries that are giving most of this money, and their legislatures, their parliaments sort of scaled down aid, and Liberia was affected, and it also impacted the implementation of the poverty reduction strategy. Next. So why institutions here? We've shown you evidence from the world distribution of Liberia. We've shown you evidence by showing you the economic history of Liberia. We've also shown you evidence on the aid front. We want now to point why institutions, why PRS. Well, the collapse of our country came as a surprise to all of us. I challenge anyone to raise their hand in this group, a Liberian, who would say to us tonight that the killing of people by young children was not surprising to you. The opening of the belly of pregnant women to sort of identify the tribe of the baby was not surprising to you. The slaughtering of innocent victims was not surprising to you. We all were surprised because we grew up in a peaceful country, but we did not know that behind all that peace, the institutions were not right. And the reason is really, our country started off on a poor theory. Basically, when you start from an inefficient allocation of resources, focus everything on Monrovia, on the elites, and allow people to recontract like we saw in the 1970s with the Moja and the PPP, in the 1980s with the coup, then the situation must improve. Wrong. It never worked in Liberia. And so the decline and collapse destroyed Liberian institutions. They were not good in the first place, but all of these things sort of destroyed our institutions. There was no way we could have managed the economy well. Poverty kept growing up, and we are where we are today. So what can we do to build a strong state? That is why we're here. That's what the PRS is all about. So can we build a strong state, achieve genuine peace in the absence of strong institutions? We don't think so. You saw the evidence. Whenever the people decided that they were sick of war and they were electing a democratic government, you saw the economy improve. Right? Saw the economy improve. So how about we sustain the democracy that we have planted now? Right? No more should we allow our country to go back. Let us protect what we have. Democracy, freedom, and all of those things. We're getting better. We'll show you later. So the role of the diaspora in this new Liberia that we're talking about is not going to be about demonstration in Washington, D.C. against the imprisonment of some political prisoner, or the imprisonment of some journalists, or the flogging of journalists, or to fight corruption by bringing the corporates down and tying them to the Ministry of Finance and flogging them on the street without due process. That's not the new Liberia that we should strive to build. We're going to look at the judiciary, we're going to look at the legislature. We cannot just put everything on the executive. So, institutions, what we did, we took all of the countries in the world, we gave them like abbreviations, again, to show you the evidence about why institutions matter. And I would like to ask the audience, if you can just tell me what kind of a relationship do you see? This is, we took one institution, the rule of law institution, and put it here. It's critical. And then here, we put what you call the income per capita, our purchasing power parity for each country on this axis. And then we dump a bunch of countries here. So we're trying to see if rule of law is correlated to growth. So what kind of relationship do you see? Here's Abertani, Liberia here again, in the red. And here is Luxembourg, the richest country in the United States. So what kind of relationship do you see? Anybody? Very good. Security means wealth. Anybody else? Come on. Don't let me do all the talking. What kind of picture do you see? Institution. What else? That's the relationship. When you put a script down in here, you see that rule of law as an institution is correlated to economic growth. If people can take their cases to the court, and then you have confidence in the system, but not who has the largest money in their pocket. That's just one institution we took. So in these countries, you see that these things are here, right? They're here. Now, I'm not suggesting that they have a perfect system, but they've worked on their institutions and they're here. And they're a wealthy country. That's Nigeria, that's Sudan, that's Haiti. All the developing countries, the third world countries are right there. And you don't have to take it from me, but just look at their history and then begin to research on the institutions in those countries. So there's a strong correlation between strong institutions and economic growth. So we wanted to show you the evidence of what we are talking about regarding the role of institutions. What are they? We'll talk about security and rule of law. We'll talk about political stability. Election is key here. Not targeting your opponents is also key. Voice and accountability, the voice of the people. Today in Liberia, you have more independent newspapers. There's no government newspaper. The new Liberia is now up and running. You have more independent radio stations. There's only one LBS, and it's even finding it difficult to find its voice. Today, as long as you take responsibility for what you say when it relates to the national security of the country, that happens everywhere.
Government effectiveness, we're trying to fix that. We're still struggling with it because of the kind of civil service we inherited. Every warring factions that came through the arranged leadership in the country brought in their people and put them in the civil service. So how do you clean up the civil service so that you bring in competent people to do the work? Regulatory quality, our regulations, all right? How do we regulate key industries, telecom, all right, and other areas? I know the free market system is great, but there are certain key industries that you have to sort of put regulations on, and also you have to put regulations on the issue of intellectual property. So how do we fix that? These are all issues in institutions and growth. So these things seem quite different things when you read them, when you look at them, but they must be fixed in order to reduce poverty in Liberia. Next. Here's our score last year, in 2010, this year, by the Millennium Challenge Corporation, working with the World Bank and other institutions. Political rights, green. Civil liberty, green. Control of corruption, green. Government effectiveness, stay in the rest. All right? What? Excuse me? This is not developed by the government. No. I know this is close to your heart, and we'll take your questions on this. But we want to show you this to show you did not start in 2006. All right, you saw the history of our country. So it's a systemic problem, not limited just to the public sector. And we can talk about this during the question and answer period. Because we show you clear examples that the private sector will have corruption problem. And your watchman, you have corruption problem there. So it's not just in the public sector, it's across the board. The focus should be how do we kill this bad culture? Okay, so we'll come to that. But I just want to share with you what other institutions and other countries are grading Liberia on this institutional reform. And I invite you to go to www.mcc.gov. All the countries in the world score there. Go to Transparency International, the corruption watchdog for the entire world. All the countries in the world score there. Go to the World Bank Governance Indicator, www.worldbank.gov/governance. You will see everything there. We want to highlight to you the progress Liberia is making on these key institution indicators because we've demonstrated to you through clear evidence, empirical evidence, that institutions matter. And this is where we are when it comes to fixing those institutions. Government effectiveness, civil service, we're still struggling with that. Rule of law, our courts, we're still struggling with that. I'm showing you this so that we can identify that new frontier with you, the diaspora Liberians. How do we build a partnership now to face corruption, to fix government effectiveness, bring green, reverse it, and then rule of law? How do we fix our courts? How do we help our police? What can you do? Can you put together a foundation that will raise money, equipment, research? But the real work is actually focusing on what we can do for your country in the words of JFK. So we need to sort of look at that. Our budget is too small. Liberia's budget in 2006 was $18 million. Some of the districts that you live in elementary school budget is more than that. Today it's around $300 million, $350 million. That's still peanut money. The whole country budget is $350. 35% of that is civil service pay. Then you gotta fix roads, you gotta fix bridges, you gotta build schools, you gotta do all the development things that we talked about at the opening of this presentation. What can you do with $350 million, folks? What can you do with it? Some school districts have more money than that here. So to open up a new frontier on how you can help your country. We encourage you to come in. We encourage you to come and join the private sector. And we also encourage you, for those of you that are ready to come home, to work with people like Cynthia Nash, our embassy here, and Friends of Liberia, to build strong foundations that can garner support for our key institutions. We need it. All right? Voice and accountability. We have green in that. So It started tracking this from 2004 up until 2010. We just wanted to show you this. Next. So in synthesis, there's enough evidence that at low levels of income, the current institutional indexes matter in reducing poverty in Liberia. Then two, there's evidence that controlling for the initial conditions in Liberia, the level of conflict resolution institutions before the conflict, 1990, and the improvements in them since the end of conflict have an effect on growth. When you look at where we were before the war and where we have come now, you will see that you cannot delink institutions from the economy. It's key. So strong institutions consolidate peace, but peace seems to be an outcome of something else that expresses itself in many apparently unrelated performance measures. We need to find out something else in Liberia. And it's that commercial piece, the people, that is important in all of this. So the dialogue on the future of Liberia, which we are doing now, must focus on finding that something else and not politicize it. We need to talk about our problems together honestly and the contribution. So this is the challenge for all the graphs that we show you. This is Liberia as of 2008, 2007. This is the poverty mark of our country, folks. Before we did the poverty reduction strategy, we mapped poverty in the country. We didn't really guesswork. We went to all 15 counties. We asked questions. 6 regions in the county. The western, the northwestern region, comprising Cape Mount, Bomi, Palabapulu, in that area today is 76.3%. It means that 76 out of every 100 Liberians you come across in that place is living on less than $2 a day. That is $1 a day. They're living on less than $1 a day. Abject poverty. That's what we're grappling with. That's the work in Liberia. No matter who is there, that's the work. Then you come here, Southeastern Aid, River Cess, Sino, Grand Cru, Grand Jide, River G. 76.7 out of every 100 Liberians cannot afford $1 a day. How do we get there? This is the problem, folks. This is the problem that happened over a 35-year period. Not just 4, 3, or 6 years, or 10 years. 35 years. North Central, Nimba, part of Branjida, Bom, Lofa, and part of Basa. Then you come to $2 a day. 68 out of every 100 Liberians living in this region here, living on less than $2 a day. Same thing here, Maryland, part of River G, and part of Grand Cru, right here. And then as we move to the areas that have viable private, the number decreasing. This is Grand Bassa, part of Monserrado by Gibi, where you have Firestone, you have the port, you have Metal, you have BRE, you have a corridor from Monrovia here. The number is 58.9. Then as we come to Monrovia, Greater Monrovia, we categorize that as one region, then it's less than 50% of people living on $2 a day. So my people, this is a challenge. Poverty reduction strategy, this is it. This is your country. This is how poverty looks like in your country. Next. So the Live Liberia, PRS, is the framework for building our country, for rebuilding our country. So the development of the PRS was participatory. Ordinary Liberians, for the first time, had their voices in the development of their counties. At the village level, at the district level, and at the county level, to do consultation with its own development agenda. And if you heard about the County Development Fund that has now worked well, and which we can talk about during the Q&A, they were intended to support the agendas for the county, to rebuild schools, to fix farm-to-market roads, to build bridges, to build community centers, to build market grounds so that people can move from under the detached stores, under a zine where they can sell well. But that's a whole different ballgame that we can talk about. I hope somebody will ask questions around on the county development fund so we can tell you exactly, accurately and honestly what's happening with that. So the county development agenda, the 15 agenda, are the ones that made the PRS. So when you build a farm-to-market road, what do you link it with to have access to the market? There's a highway. You have to link it to a highway. That highway becomes the national level intervention, as an example. And then the country ownership is key. Support from partners is critical. Somebody asked me today, if we were to eradicate poverty in Liberia, what is the one resource that we have? The people, the ownership. Liberians must tie their waist, like we say in Liberia. The women must tie their lapa. The men must put the belt on and then get to work. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do, my people. Our country is way behind. We are almost 164 years old. And I'm not sure anybody in this room is proud to, of what we have done. We need to reverse that, and it would be great, if each of us can commit the rest of our lifetime on earth to make that happen. Don't stay out. It's morning again in Liberia. The sun is coming up. Get involved. Get involved. So we have 4 pillars. We have 4 pillars of the PRS. I'm just summarizing. Pillar is enhancing peace and security. And then the other one is revitalizing the economy. We need to jumpstart the traditional engines of growth. We cannot, try to do what we wish for because we don't have the resources and the conditions are not right. We have to fix what we have in order to get what we want. So our broken roads, our bad infrastructure, electricity, all those things, water, we need to fix them. And then we can now talk about we need rail, commercial rail. Or we need, other things that we are used to in the diaspora or maybe some other place. We need to target our traditional engines of growth, and then we need to manage the resources from the concessions well in order to accelerate growth. Then we need to improve governance and the rule of law. Institutions, again, key. We need to fix land. We need to fix our courts. We need to fix our schools. We need to fix our government. We need to fix our social institutions. But most importantly, we need reconciliation in our country badly. And that is why the next generation of PRS, reconciliation is going to be a key pillar in that which we are now developing. We are drafting it. There will be another round of consultation with the diaspora Liberians. We'll come right back here in Atlanta and we'll show you that draft document and we'll ask you for your input so that we can work on it together. Rebuilding infrastructure and providing basic services. How do we get the farmers now, the small growers, to move their crops from their farm to the market in Ghana, to the market in Buchanan, to the market in Banda, to the market of our roads? We need to rebuild our bridges. Liberia is the only country in the Mano River Union, fellow Liberians. There was a war in Sierra Leone. They cut the hand off of their citizens, but they never touched the electrical wires. They never touched the rail along the bridges. They never took their quota off to get the wire underneath to sell it to Econom. Some of you live there. Some of us were there as refugees. You go back there today, the infrastructure is better off. It makes the recovery process easier. Cote d'Ivoire had a civil war. When you go to the rebel zone, everything is still there. Okay? In our country, we rip everything off. everything was scrapped. Okay, everything was scrapped, there was no law and order, and though the peacekeepers came to help us, but also they were the buyers of those things. That's the fact. So for us, our work is more than the other countries. We have to rebuild everything from scratch. It's like a baby. So you don't leave a baby in the wrap. You have to mold it and build it. That's what we've come to talk to you about, and listen to you on how we can do that better. So our economy is recovering, as you saw from the picture, but the recovery is slow because resources are low, aid is going down, human capital is low. So what can we do now to make private sector truly the engine of growth? That's what we need to talk about. That's what we need to focus the next growth strategy on. We started on that. We'll talk to you about it. We don't have the picture to show you, but we are going to make private sector development to replace the economic revitalization. So it is a pillar in the next generation of PRS. Okay? So the implication of PRS is that once we get, everything right, we establish the rules of the fair game and ensure the enforcement, we as a country will be well advised to stand back and enjoy the special election that will consolidate peace and reduce poverty. But to do that, Liberians must be willing to openly discuss their black history